Hi guys, Cliff Olson, Doctor of Audiology and founder of Applied Hearing Solutions in Phoenix, Arizona. And in this video, I'm talking about whether or not you should try over-the-counter hearing aids or if you should just jump straight to prescription hearing aids with professional care. Coming up. There has been a lot of attention surrounding over-the-counter hearing aids over the past 6 years since the FDA Reauthorization Act of 2017 was signed into law, creating a new category of over-the-counter devices. And just in case you were unaware, this new category of over-the-counter hearing aids is completely separate from prescription hearing aids, and they were created as a way to increase affordability and accessibility for adults with perceived mild to moderate hearing loss. As you can see, this group accounts for 75% of individuals with an aidable hearing loss, but only approximately 10% of the people in this severity category currently treat their loss with hearing aids. Now, I have reviewed a ton of over-the-counter style hearing aids over the course of the past 6 years, identifying their strengths and their weaknesses leading up to the official release in 2022. And what I can tell you is this: over-the-counter hearing aids may be a good starting point for some individuals with a perceived mild to moderate hearing loss, but they are definitely not appropriate for everybody. To help illustrate what I mean, I want to discuss a study that was done at Indiana University that received a headline of "Model Approach for Over-the-Counter Hearing Aids Suggests Benefits Similar to Full Service Purchase" by the National Institute on Deafness and Other Communication Disorders. In this 2017 study, researchers compared prescription hearing aids fit by hearing care professionals to prescription hearing aids that were self-fit by individuals with hearing loss, as well as having a control group. Each of the 155 participants in this particular study had mild to moderate hearing loss. At the conclusion of this study, the researchers actually identified that both treatment groups, of the ones that were fit professionally and the ones that were self-fit, performed better than the control group. So that's a really good start. They also identified that the self-fitting group that followed more of an over-the-counter hearing aid delivery model had only slightly poorer outcomes than the prescription group that was fit by a hearing care professional. This would seem to suggest that an over-the-counter hearing aid delivery model that does not have the support of an audiologist would perform roughly equivalent to a delivery model that does use an audiologist. But this isn't the whole story. You see, when they surveyed these participants at the end of the study, they asked them if they were willing to actually keep the hearing treatment that they had received. And 81% of the individuals who received best practice audiologic care from an audiologist said yes. You want to know how many participants in the over-the-counter hearing aid self-fitting group decided to keep their hearing aids? Only 55%. So if the measurable outcomes inside of this study were essentially the same between these two groups, then how come less individuals in the over-the-counter self-fitting group wanted to keep their hearing aids? Fortunately, the researchers thought to ask that exact question, and what they found was that of those who were not planning to keep their hearing aids or were undecided at that time, the most frequently cited reason for their response was the lack of benefit provided. Unfortunately, it appears as though the outcome measures that these researchers used were not sensitive enough to identify the actual differences in performance between the two groups. Now, to clear up this confusion a little bit further, the researchers took an additional step where they had the individuals in the over-the-counter delivery group actually get retreated by an audiologist. You want to know what happened? Well, the amount of individuals inside of this over-the-counter group who elected to keep their devices went from 55% up to 83% after receiving professional care. So clearly, there is something to be said for the intervention of a hearing care professional when achieving a higher level treatment outcome compared to self-fitting devices. The other thing that I should mention about this study is that they used prescription hearing aids for both of the groups. Because remember, over-the-counter hearing aids didn't technically exist back in 2017. We didn't know what the capabilities of those devices were ultimately going to be. This means that they only really tested the delivery model of prescription devices being self-fit or professionally fit. And if only 55% of individuals who use over-the-counter hearing aids actually decide to keep them, which is very similar to what we're actually seeing right now, then we're still going to have a hearing crisis on our hands. And it will ultimately not even matter how affordable and accessible these devices are. This is why Oticon, today's video sponsor, believes that it is critical for you to work with a hearing care professional if you want to optimize your performance with your hearing aids. This is why this study by Dr. Larry Humes and his colleagues is so critical in understanding the benefit that professional hearing care provides. Are the hearing aids even important? Of course they are, because the quality and performance of the hearing aid is what will dictate how well your hearing care professional can optimize them for you. That's why Oticon has developed what they call their brain hearing approach, because they understand that you don't just hear with your ears, you hear with your brain. And if you want to optimize your speech understanding and engagement, then you need hearing aid technology that supports how your brain naturally processes sound. Oticon does this by focusing on the two subsystems of how your brain makes sense of sound: the Orient subsystem and the focus subsystem. The Orient subsystem comes first. This is when your brain hears sound from all around you, no matter the nature or direction, to create a full perspective of your surroundings. Next, the focus subsystem allows your brain to identify a sound you want to focus on and switch your attention to that sound while filtering out irrelevant sounds. When these two subsystems work together, it allows your brain to hear optimally, and this is exactly why Oticon develops their technology to perform processing in this manner. But like I said, Oticon also understands that your ability to do really well with their hearing aids depends on whether or not you work with a hearing care professional who follows best practices. Because as you can see by the results of the Larry Humes study, you may be able to get some benefit through a self-treatment model, but the likelihood of you having enough success with your hearing aids to stick with it is significantly less. When it comes to over-the-counter hearing aids, I can speak from experience that the capabilities of over-the-counter hearing aids, even if you have them professionally fit, is significantly less than the capabilities that you get with a prescription hearing aid. Like I mentioned before, I have done a ton of reviews of direct-to-consumer style hearing aids as well as official over-the-counter hearing aids over the course of the past several years, and I can tell you that the performance capabilities of these devices is significantly less than prescription hearing aids. And just so you know, I personally sell over-the-counter hearing aids both online as well as inside of my clinic, and the return rates of people sending them back to us for a refund is 50%. The return rates for prescription hearing aids inside of my clinic is less than 1%. And we even deal with some of the most difficult hearing losses to treat inside of my clinic that would make you think that our return rates would be much higher. When a patient allows me to perform a professional fitting of an over-the-counter hearing aid inside of my clinic, I am never able to achieve perfection like I am with a prescription hearing aid. So this really comes down to you answering the question of, are you just looking for a boost in your hearing, or are you looking to hear your absolute best? If you're just looking for a boost, then maybe going the over-the-counter hearing aid route to start makes a lot of sense. But if you're looking to hear your best, then going the route of a prescription hearing aid fit by a hearing care professional is the right route for you.